TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. Hamas rejects the latest outline for a hostage release deal, insisting that any final agreement will include Israel's defeat. The United States and Iran are set to hold technical discussions on a viable nuclear agreement. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee stresses that Iran seeks to annihilate both Israel and the United States of America. The Islamist Hamas terror organization rejected the latest Israeli proposal for a negotiated outline for the release of Israeli hostages in exchange for far-reaching Israeli concessions. While Hamas said it was willing to release the hostages, it would only do so if Israel essentially accepts defeat, withdraws from the entirety of the Gaza Strip, and ensures the influx of billions of US dollars into the territory for the purpose of reconstruction. When it comes to Israel's demands for Hamas to disarm and end its governance of the Gaza Strip, the internationally designated terror group claimed it had a right to fight Israel, which according to the Islamist Hamas does not have a right to exist.
The resistance and its weapons is related to the existence of occupation, and it's a normal right for our people and all the people who are living under occupation.
Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to the rejection of the proposed outline by the Islamist Hamas.
This weekend, Hamas again rejected a proposal that could have led to the release of half of the remaining living hostages who are still in Gaza and the return of many of the deceased. Hamas is demanding an end to the war and that its regime be left in place. It is also demanding a complete Israeli withdrawal from Gaza and the rehabilitation of Gaza with the influx of vast capital that will allow it to rearm and prepare attacks on us again. An end to the war on these conditions of surrender would send a message to all enemies of Israel that by taking Israelis hostage it is possible to bring the state of Israel to its knees and defeat it. It would also be the lethal message that terrorism pays, which would harm the security of the entire free world. Of course, under these conditions, the important vision of President Trump would not be viable, the vision that will change the face of Gaza once and for all, and enable our country to live in security. Thus, I reiterate, we will not conclude the war of redemption before we destroy Hamas in Gaza, return all of our hostages, and ensure that the Gaza Strip will never again constitute a threat to Israel.
Prime Minister Netanyahu went on to pledge that Jerusalem would not surrender to Hamas's preposterous demands, stressing that by accepting the demands of the Palestinian terror group, it would essentially invite another October 7th and grant the Islamic Republic of Iran, which openly seeks Israel's destruction, a great victory.
If we do not complete the destruction of Hamas's military and governing capabilities, the next October 7th and the next abductions are only a question of time. Hamas says that they will do it. They intend to do it and they are working on it. Leaving the Hamas regime in place in Gaza would be a huge defeat for Israel and a huge victory for Iran.
Amid ongoing negotiations between the United States and Iran on the latter's nuclear program, Prime Minister Netanyahu stressed that he remains committed to ensure that the Ayatollah regime does not attain nuclear weapon capabilities.
I am committed to preventing Iran from having nuclear weapons. I will not give in on this, neither will I slacken or retreat on this, not even a millimeter.
It is important to know that ahead of the talks over the weekend, while hosting Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, President Donald Trump insisted that he did not wave off Israel's intentions to strike Iran's nuclear infrastructure, but rather sought to give diplomacy a final chance.
I wouldn't say waved off. I'm not in a rush to do it because I think that Iran has a chance to have a great country and to live happily without death. and I'd like to see that. That's my first option. If there's a second option, I think it would be very bad for Iran. And I think Iran is wanting to talk. I hope they're wanting to talk. It's going to be very good for them if they do. And I'd like to see Iran thrive in the future, do fantastically well. I know the Iranian people, they're incredible people. Always have been very smart, very energetic, very successful people. And I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt anybody. I really don't. But Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. It's, pretty simple. It's really simple. We're not looking to take their industry. We're not looking to take their land. All we're saying is you can't have a nuclear weapon. The deal that was made with Obama, that deal would have expired already. It was a terrible deal. It would have expired, and that gave them a clear path to a nuclear weapon. I wouldn't have accepted. That's why I terminated the deal. Number one, it was way too short.
Prior to the meeting between the U.S. and Iranian delegations, which took place at the Omani embassy in the Italian capital, Rome, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi met with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, in Moscow, during the course of which the two top diplomats closely coordinated Tehran's approach in the talks with their American adversary. Among the chief-most efforts by Russia and Iran is to limit the negotiations to a single nuclear file rather than broaden the talks to the Islamic Republic's ballistic missiles program, which seemingly includes Iranian efforts to produce technology for intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Отмечу особо, что Исламская Республика Иран
I would like to emphasize that the Islamic Republic of Iran is ready to seat this deal within the Non-Proliferation Treaty. This is a fundamental point that should be taken into consideration by those who are trying to overload the negotiations with things that have nothing to do with nuclear issues and therefore create a very risky situation.
тем самым создает очень рискованную ситуацию.
Meanwhile, in Rome, after the talks between the American and Iranian negotiating teams concluded, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi asserted that the indirect negotiations were fruitful and that technical teams of the United States and Iran would meet next week to determine whether a diplomatic solution is in fact viable.
As I said, the negotiations were held in a constructive atmosphere, and I can say that they are moving forward, and we are moving forward. I hope that next week, after the technical meetings, we will be in a better position to judge the possibility of reaching an agreement. We are still acting cautiously.
Meanwhile, in Tehran, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian claimed that while the Islamic Republic would never accept a humiliating agreement that would revoke its nuclear ambitions, Tehran does not want war either. He then continued to claim that the Ayatollah regime apparently wants peace and security for the entire world, and that the only country that sponsors terror, irrespective of the Islamic Republic's proven track record of global belligerence via crime syndicates and proxies, was no other than the State of Israel.
We will never submit to any humiliation, by the grace of Allah. This is our belief and conviction, but of course, we are not looking for war with anyone. We want there to be peace and security in the world. We want all the people living on this planet to live in safety and peace. We are trying to resolve our regional differences. We are trying to resolve our differences with the world. We are not and never have been seeking war. We are victims of terrorism. More than 26,000, 24,000 people have been victims of terror in our streets. It is Israel that is committing acts of terror. It carries out terrorism openly through software, through hardware, and through its social activities. In other words, it does whatever it wants. And yet they sit there and talk about human rights.
Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, a vocal born-again evangelical Christian, provided his credentials to Israel's President Yitzhak Herzog yesterday in a cordial ceremony at the president's residence in the capital. Prior to officially taking his post, Ambassador Huckabee traveled to Jerusalem's Old City where he placed a note with President Trump's prayer at the western wall of the biblical Temple Mount, which read, quote, "For peace in Israel." Subsequently, in a brief press availability, Ambassador Huckabee stressed President Trump's commitment to guarantee that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
Well, the president himself has made very clear Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. They will not be in a position where that they can threaten the peace, not just of Israel, but all of the people of the rest of the world. Let's never forget that the Iranians have not simply threatened Israel with extinction, which they have repeatedly over 46 years, but they have also threatened the United States. They don't just say death to Israel, they say death to America. And there's an old saying that when people tell you over and again they're going to kill you, you might want to take them seriously. So I don't think that this is just about Israel. Israel has often been called the little Satan and the U.S. the great Satan. I'd put it in simpler terms. For the Iranians, Israel is the appetizer and the U.S. is the entree. Whatever happens at the hands of the Iranians to Israel is the intended happening to those of us in the United States.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. Keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and the salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.